The champagne was Dom Pérignon. I noticed because my sister Victoria had mentioned it 14 times during the reception speeches, making sure everyone understood that her wedding to Bradley Hamilton III was the social event of the season. The crystal flutes alone probably cost more than my monthly apartment rent, or at least, that's what my family assumed. To the happy couple, my father said, raising his glass for what felt like the 20th toast of the evening. May your success continue to multiply, just like Victoria's company has done this year. I smiled and raised my own glass, taking a small sip. The ballroom of the Hamilton Grand Hotel gleamed with thousands of fairy lights strung across the vaulted ceiling. Ice sculptures shaped like swans guarded each corner of the room. White roses cascaded from every surface. Victoria had spared no expense, though technically, it wasn't her expense to spare. My mother appeared at my elbow, her Vera Wang gown rustling against the polished marble floor. "Rachel, darling, you look..." She paused, examining my simple navy dress. "Understated." "Thank you, Mom. You know, Victoria offered to buy you something more appropriate for tonight. Something designer. It's not too late to change if you have something in your car." "I'm comfortable," I said. "This dress works fine." She sighed, the particular sigh she reserved exclusively for conversations with me, heavy with disappointment and the weight of unfulfilled expectations. "I just worry about what Bradley's family thinks. They're very particular about appearances." "I'm sure they're focused on Victoria tonight, Mom." "As they should be." Before she could respond, the DJ announced it was time for the father-daughter dance. I watched as my father led Victoria to the center of the dance floor, her $47,000 Marchesa gown trailing behind her like a cloud of silk and dreams. The guests formed a reverent circle around them. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I glanced at the screen. A text from Marcus, my assistant. "Conference call with the Singapore partners, still on for Monday?" I typed back quickly. "Yes. 8 a.m. their time. Make sure the quarterly reports are ready." Still pretending to work? My cousin Derek appeared beside me, scotch in hand. He worked in middle management at a bank downtown and never let anyone forget it. "You know, Rachel, there are jobs out there. Real ones. I could put in a word for you at my firm. Maybe something entry-level." "That's thoughtful, Derek. I'll keep it in mind." "It's just..." He leaned closer, his breath warm with whiskey. "It's been, what, 5 years since you quit your last real job? Everyone's worried about you. Living off savings isn't a career plan." "No," I agreed pleasantly. "It isn't." The father-daughter dance ended to thunderous applause. Victoria glided toward the microphone, Bradley's arm wrapped possessively around her waist. Her smile was radiant, victorious, the smile of someone who had won at life and wanted everyone to acknowledge it. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice carrying perfectly across the room. "This is the happiest day of my life, surrounded by everyone I love, well, almost everyone I love." Light laughter rippled through the crowd. My stomach tightened. "I want to take a moment to thank my family. Dad, for teaching me that success is the only option. Mom, for showing me what grace under pressure looks like." Victoria paused, her eyes finding mine across the room. "And Rachel, my baby sister, for being a cautionary tale." More laughter now, louder. Less uncomfortable. "I'm serious," Victoria continued, warming to her subject. "Every time I wanted to give up on my company, every time I thought about taking the easy path, I looked at Rachel and thought, that's what failure looks like. That's what happens when you don't push yourself." My mother was nodding along, her expression sympathetic. Dad had his arm around her shoulders. "She couldn't even keep a real job," Victoria told the wedding guests, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "Total failure. But I love her anyway." The room applauded. My family applauded. Bradley's parents, both of them surgeons at prestigious hospitals, applauded with polite confusion, probably wondering why the bride was publicly humiliating her own sister at her wedding reception. I kept dancing to the background music still playing softly through the speakers. My feet moved in small, graceful steps that I'd learned years ago, when I'd briefly considered a career in dance before discovering my real calling. My Aunt Patricia caught my eye from across the room. Her expression carried that particular blend of pity and satisfaction that she'd perfected over decades of family gatherings. She raised her glass slightly in my direction, a mock toast to my continued failure. The rest of the evening proceeded according to script. I congratulated the happy couple. I posed for family photos, standing at the edge where I could be easily cropped out if necessary. I ate the $300 per plate dinner and complimented the wine selection. I was the perfect invisible guest. At 9:47 p.m., Victoria found me near the dessert table. No hard feelings about the speech, right? She wasn't asking, she was informing. I just wanted people to understand my journey. How far I've come despite having a sister who couldn't even finish her MBA. I understood, I said. It's just that my investors are here tonight. The Hamiltons have connections to Wellington Capital, and I'm trying to close a Series B round. They need to see that I'm the successful one in the family. Of course. Victoria tilted her head, studying me with the expression of someone examining a slightly wilted flower arrangement. You know, I could find something for you at my company. Something administrative, maybe. If you wanted to finally do something with your life. That's generous of you. Well, family is family. She smoothed her gown, even if some of us contribute more than others. She swept away to greet more important guests, leaving me with a half-eaten piece of wedding cake and the lingering scent of her $400 perfume. At 10:15 p.m., I stepped onto the balcony for some air. The Hamilton Grand Hotel overlooked the city skyline, all glittering lights and distant possibilities. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Marcus. Yes, I know it's late. I need you to initiate Protocol 7. Yes, for Hamilton Industries, the whole thing. And pull the Bellarive account while you're at it. Everything through the Shell Corporation goes back to home base. No, tomorrow morning is fine. Let them enjoy their wedding night. I hung up just as the balcony door opened behind me. There you are. My father stepped out, loosening his tie. Your mother's looking for you. Wants a family photo at the ice sculpture before it melts. I'll be right in. He didn't leave immediately. Instead, he stood beside me looking out at the same skyline. You know, Rachel, Victoria didn't mean to hurt your feelings tonight. I know. She's worked so hard for everything she has. Built her company from nothing. Your mother and I are so proud of her. You should be. She's impressive. And you. He turned to look at me directly for the first time that evening. You had so much potential, sweetheart. I don't understand what happened. That job at the consulting firm, you were doing so well. Then you just walked away. Started working on projects. He made air quotes around the words. Whatever that means. It means I found something more fulfilling. More fulfilling than success? Than making something of yourself. I smiled at him. Genuinely smiled, though he wouldn't understand why. Dad, what do you think success looks like? He gestured broadly. This. What your sister has. A thriving company, a good marriage, respect. The ability to host an event like this without worrying about the cost. And if I told you I could host 10 events like this without worrying about the cost? He laughed, but not unkindly. Rachel, honey, I've seen your apartment. I've seen your car. You don't have to pretend with me. I'm not pretending. Then you're delusional, which is worse. He put his hand on my shoulder. Look, I know I was hard on you when you were younger. Maybe I pushed too much, expected too much. But it's not too late to turn things around. Victoria's offer, the administrative position, you should take it. I'll think about it, I said, which was the answer I always gave when there was nothing to think about. We returned to the ballroom together. The party was reaching its crescendo. The band had launched into an energetic set. Guests were crowding the dance floor, and Victoria was holding court near the main table, surrounded by admirers and well-wishers. I noticed Bradley's father, Dr. Jonathan Hamilton, deep in conversation with a man I recognized, David Chun, one of the senior partners at Wellington Capital. They were discussing something intently, their heads bent close together. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Ms. Monroe, this is James Whitfield from First National. We need to speak urgently regarding the Bellarive Holdings account. Please call at your earliest convenience. I silenced my phone and slipped it back into my clutch. At 11:30 p.m., the wedding cake was cut. Victoria and Bradley posed with a knife, their smiles frozen in photogenic perfection. The photographer captured shot after shot while guests cheered and glasses clinked. My mother appeared at my elbow again. Rachel, you should go talk to Bradley's cousin. He's single.
Has a job. Mom, ayun fine.
You're 32. You're not fine. You're running out of time. Time for what? She looked at me as if I'd asked why water was wet. For everything, dear. For a career. For marriage. For children. For mattering. I matter to myself. That's not enough. It was never enough. She squeezed my arm with something that might have been affection. I just want you to be happy. Really happy. Not whatever this is. This is contentment, Mom. It's what happiness feels like when you're not performing for anyone. She shook her head sadly and drifted away to find more satisfying company. The reception continued. I danced with Derek, who spent the entire song explaining his theory about cryptocurrency. I chatted with Bradley's grandmother, a charming woman who was the only person all night who asked me what I enjoyed doing rather than what I did for work. I avoided my sister, which wasn't difficult. She was too busy basking in her triumph to notice my presence or absence. At midnight, the party began to wind down. Guests were calling for cars. Bradley and Victoria were preparing for their grand exit, rose petals at the ready. That's when Victoria's phone rang. She ignored it at first. She was in the middle of hugging her new mother-in-law, tears glistening artfully in her eyes. But the phone kept ringing. And ringing. Just answer it, babe, Bradley said. Could be important. Victoria stepped away, pressing the phone to her ear. I watched her face change. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something I'd never seen on my confident, successful sister before.
Fear.
What do you mean, withdrawn? Her voice carried further than she intended. Nearby guests turned to look. That's not possible. We have contracts. We have. She walked quickly toward a quieter corner, but I could still hear fragments. Anonymous investor, majority stake, breach of, can't do this. Bradley followed her, concern creasing his handsome face. Several of Wellington Capital's representatives exchanged glances. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. A text from Marcus. Protocol 7 complete. Bellarive Holdings has officially divested from Hamilton Industries and all subsidiary accounts. Victoria Hamilton's company currently has approximately $847,000 in operational capital remaining, enough for roughly 8 weeks of operation at current burn rate. Also, James Whitfield from First National has been trying to reach you. Says it's urgent. I typed back. Tell James I'll call him Monday. And thank you, Marcus. Get some sleep. Victoria returned to the reception area, her face pale beneath her perfect makeup. Bradley had his arm around her, trying to console her, but she was shaking her head over and over. My father approached them, concerned.
Victoria?
What's wrong? The investor, she whispered, loud enough for me to hear from across the room. The anonymous investor who funded the Series A. The one who owns 51% of the company. They're pulling everything.
What? Why?
Did something happen? I don't know. The bank president called, James Whitfield himself. Can you imagine? At midnight on my wedding night, saying that Bellarive Holdings is divesting immediately. All $47 million of their investment. They're exercising some clause in the original contract that lets them withdraw if certain conditions aren't met. What conditions? Bradley asked. Victoria shook her head helplessly. Something about, I don't know, ethical standards? Community impact requirements? I never even read that part of the contract. My lawyers handled everything. David Chen from Wellington Capital materialized beside them, his expression grave. Victoria, I just got off the phone with my partners. I'm afraid this changes things regarding your Series B. Without Bellarive's backing, the risk profile of your company has changed significantly. David, please.
I'm sorry.
We'll need to revisit the terms. Substantially. My mother was hovering nearby, her face a mask of polished concern. Victoria, sweetheart, I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. These things happen in business. Your father will call his contacts tomorrow. Mom, you don't understand. Victoria's voice cracked. Without that investment, I have 8 weeks of operating capital. Maybe 10 if I lay off half my staff. The company is done. Everything I built is done. The word spread through the remaining guests like a virus. The successful bride, humiliated on her wedding night. The thriving company suddenly on life support. The golden child, tarnished. I remained at the dessert table, finishing my champagne. Aunt Patricia found me there, her earlier satisfaction replaced by something more predatory. Did you hear? Victoria's company is in trouble. Something about an investor pulling out. I heard. Such a shame. And on her wedding night, too. Aunt Patricia's voice dripped with false sympathy. I suppose success isn't as guaranteed as we all thought. I suppose not. At least you never had to worry about something like this happening to you. She patted my arm. That's the advantage of not having anything to lose. There are advantages to everything, Aunt Patricia. She wandered off to spread the news to other relatives, and I was finally alone with my thoughts and my rapidly emptying champagne glass. At 12:45 a.m., James Whitfield called again. This time, I answered. Ms. Monroe, thank you for taking my call. I apologize for the late hour, but the partners at Bellerive were insistent that this matter be handled immediately. It's no trouble, James. What can I do for you? Well, ma'am, as you know, the divestment from Hamilton Industries is complete as of 20 minutes ago. However, the board wanted me to confirm that the funds should be redirected to the standard holding account, or if you'd prefer they be allocated to the new acquisition you mentioned last week. The holding account for now. We can discuss the acquisition on Monday. Very good. Also, Ms. Monroe, I feel I should mention, the CEO of Hamilton Industries, Victoria Hamilton, has been attempting to reach Bellerive Holdings through our offices. She's quite distressed. Should I provide her with your contact information? I watched Victoria across the room. She was sitting at a table now, her wedding dress pooling around her like a deflated cloud. Bradley was rubbing her shoulders while my parents stood nearby, looking helpless.
No, James.
I'll reach out to her directly when the time is right. Understood. Is there anything else I can help with tonight? That's all. Thank you for your efficiency. Of course, Ms. Monroe. Congratulations on the successful divestment. The ROI on the Hamilton Industries investment over the past 3 years was exceptional, 327% returns. One of Bellerive's best-performing assets. Sometimes you have to know when to cash out. Indeed, ma'am. Good evening. I hung up and ordered another glass of champagne from a passing server. The wedding was officially over, but no one seemed to be leaving. The disaster unfolding had become the evening's main entertainment, far more captivating than the band or the ice sculptures. My father found me at 1:15 a.m. Rachel, your sister needs support right now. This isn't the time for you to be sitting in a corner. I offered my support earlier, Dad. She turned me down. That was before this. He gestured vaguely toward the chaos. She's your sister. Whatever happened between you, whatever resentment you're holding on to, she needs family right now. I stood, smoothing my understated navy dress. You're right, Dad. She does need family. I walked across the ballroom, my heels clicking against the marble floor with each step. The remaining guests parted to let me through, curious about the approaching confrontation. Victoria looked up as I stopped in front of her table. Her mascara had run slightly. Her perfect hair was coming undone. She looked, for the first time in decades, like my actual sister instead of a carefully constructed image of success. What do you want, Rachel? Come to gloat.
No.
Then what? I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. Bradley hovered protectively, but I ignored him. Victoria, do you remember when we were kids and you used to help me with my math homework? She blinked, thrown by the change in subject. What? You'd sit with me for hours, explaining fractions and decimals. You never got frustrated, never made me feel stupid for not understanding. You were so patient. Yes, I remember. What does that have to do with anything? I've been thinking about that version of you all night, wondering where she went. Victoria's face hardened. She grew up. She learned that the world rewards success and punishes weakness. She learned to be strong because no one else was going to do it for her. Is that what happened? Or did she just learn to perform strength while actually becoming more afraid with every passing year? I'm not afraid of anything. You're afraid right now. Your whole world is collapsing and you're terrified. And that's okay, Victoria. That's human. Don't pretend to understand my world. You opted out of success. You don't know what it's like to have everything and watch it slip away. Actually, I said, I do.
Victoria snorted. Please.
You have nothing. I have Bellerive Holdings. The words dropped into the conversation like stones into still water.
Victoria froze.
Bradley straightened. My parents, hovering nearby, exchanged confused glances. What did you say?
Victoria whispered.
Bellerive Holdings. The anonymous investor who funded your Series A 3 years ago. The entity that owns 51% of your company, or rather, owned until about 45 minutes ago. That's me. I'm the founder and sole owner of Bellerive Holdings. I started it 7 years ago, after I left the consulting firm. Turns out I'm quite good at identifying undervalued opportunities and nurturing them to success.
No.
Victoria was shaking her head. No, this is some kind of sick joke. I pulled out my phone and dialed. James? Yes, sorry to bother you again. Could you please confirm for the people around me who owns Bellerive Holdings? Yes, on speaker is fine. James Whitfield's voice filled the air. Bellerive Holdings is a private investment firm wholly owned by Rachel Elizabeth Monroe. Ms. Monroe serves as the managing director and has final authority over all investment decisions. Is there anything else you need, Ms. Monroe? That's all, James. Thank you. I hung up. Victoria was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. 3 years ago, I said, you came to me looking for investment. You didn't know it was me, of course. All communications went through lawyers and intermediaries. But I read your business plan. I saw the potential in what you were building. And despite everything that had happened between us, I believed in your company. You invested $47 million in my company? I invested in a promising business. The fact that my sister happened to be running it was incidental. I paused. At least it was supposed to be incidental. The clause that allows me to withdraw for ethical violations, I added that specifically because I know you, Victoria. I wanted to believe you'd changed, but I needed a safety net. Ethical violations? Her voice rose. I haven't violated anything. You publicly humiliated your investor at your own wedding. You told 200 people that I was a failure, a cautionary tale, someone who couldn't keep a real job. I kept my voice calm, measured. You violated the dignity clause in our investment agreement. Section 7, paragraph 3. Investor shall not be subjected to public defamation, harassment, or intentional reputational harm by any principal of the invested company. I didn't know you were the investor. That doesn't matter. The clause exists. You violated it. The withdrawal is legally bulletproof. Victoria turned to Bradley, desperate. There has to be something we can do. Your family's lawyers. Bradley held up his hands. Victoria, if what she's saying is true, and it sounds like it is, then there's no legal recourse. You signed a contract with those terms. You broke those terms. She has every right to pull her money. But it's my company. My life's work. And it was my money, I said quietly. My money that built your company. My money that paid for your expansion, your staff, your fancy office downtown. My money that funded this wedding indirectly. I gestured around at the elaborate decorations. All those times you told people you were self-made, you were made by me. My mother stepped forward, her face pale. Rachel, you can't do this. She's your sister. She is my sister. The same sister who spent 10 years telling everyone I'm worthless. The same sister who didn't invite me to her engagement party because she was embarrassed by my lack of career. The same sister who, tonight, used her wedding reception to publicly mock me in front of 200 guests. I looked at my mother steadily. At what point, exactly, should I have kept subsidizing her success? This is revenge, my father said, his voice rough. Pure and simple.
No, Dad.
Revenge would be destroying her company completely. Revenge would be leaking the story to the press and watching her reputation crumble. Revenge would be buying her debt and calling it in. I stood up, smoothing my dress. This is just a correction, a rebalancing of the scales. Rachel. Victoria grabbed my arm. For the first time, I saw something genuine in her eyes. Not fear, not anger, but real desperation. Please. I'll apologize. I'll tell everyone the truth about you. I'll do whatever you want. Just please don't let my company die. I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. Do you remember what you said earlier tonight? When you offered me an administrative position at your company? She shook her head mutely. You said, family is family, even if some of us contribute more than others. I gently removed her hand. You were right. Family is family. And tonight, I contributed more than you could possibly imagine. I turned and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted around me, their faces a mixture of shock, awe, and the particular gleeful horror that comes from witnessing a spectacular family drama. My father caught up with me at the door. Rachel, wait. We need to talk about this. We can talk Monday, Dad. I have office hours on Monday afternoons. Office hours? What are you? I'm the managing director of a $2.3 billion investment portfolio. I have office hours. I smiled at him, genuinely this time. You can make an appointment through my assistant. I stepped out into the cool night air. A black car was already waiting at the curb. Marcus had arranged it hours ago, anticipating this moment. As I slid into the back seat, my phone buzzed one final time. A text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Bradley. Victoria is inconsolable. Is there any way to undo this? Please. Name your price. I typed back. Tell Victoria to read Section 12 of the investment agreement. The reinstatement clause. If she completes all requirements within 30 days, Bellerive will consider reinvesting. But the requirements are specific, and one of them involves a public acknowledgement of who really built her success. Her choice. I sent the message and tucked my phone away. The city lights blurred past my window as the car glided through the empty streets. Tomorrow, the financial news would be buzzing with speculation about Bellerive Holdings' sudden divestment from a promising tech company. My phone would ring with calls from reporters, analysts, and curious investors. But tonight, I was just Rachel, the younger sister who couldn't keep a real job. The family failure who'd somehow managed to quietly amass a fortune while everyone was busy underestimating her. The champagne warmth was fading, replaced by something more satisfying, the quiet certainty that I had never, not once, lost my composure. Not when Victoria mocked me. Not when my parents dismissed me. Not when I held the power to destroy my sister's entire life and chose, instead, to offer her a path forward. That, I thought as the car carried me home, was the real difference between us. Victoria built an empire on borrowed money and borrowed confidence. I built mine on patience, silence, and the absolute conviction that success means nothing if you have to tear down others to achieve it. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Marcus. Everything okay? The office is ready for Monday. I typed back. Everything is fine. See you at 8. Outside, the first hints of dawn were touching the sky. A new day was beginning for everyone. Some of us were more prepared for it than others.